on this computer. Sounds good to me.
Got it, Zoom lady.
All right, and so yeah, let's get rolling with the following icebreaker questions. Let's start with the mentors, who I think will do a slightly different set of questions so that we can introduce ourselves a little bit as far as like our experience. There's not that many of us this time around, so for Lauren and Andrew and Tanner and myself, we're going to say it's going to be, first of all, what's your name and pronouns? What's your second of all, where are you currently located? Third of all, what's your job title and or area of expertise in software? And finally, your favorite place to take a vacation.
Ooh. Okay, this is a good one. I'm just we had the same idea, didn't we? See? Okay.
Thank you so much. Well, thank you both of you for getting that down.
Yeah, right. I just knew I'd forget something if I didn't write it down. So I'm Andrew Hedges, and I am in Portland, Oregon. My pronouns are he, him. And I'm the founder of Collab Lab. That's one of my titles, I guess. I'm also an engineering manager at a company called Zapier. And Zapier is a fully remote company that does workflow automation. It's a lot of fun. I've been there for about 3 years. And my favorite place to vacay, I love to travel. And I used to live in New Zealand. I've been back there a couple of times since I moved back, but any chance I get to go to New Zealand, I'm happy to go and poke around. It's a beautiful place.
All right, thank you very much, Andrew. Lauren, you want to go next?
Sure. Am I unmuted? Yeah. My name is Lauren Beatty. I go by she, her, hers pronouns. I live in Minnesota, just outside of Minneapolis, north of Minneapolis, Minnesota. I also work for Zapier, as it so happens. I've been there for 3 months. And let's see, I'm a senior software engineer. I'm the tech lead of the design systems team, which is just my favorite thing in the world. I love design systems. And one of the reasons I came to Zapier is because Andrew is so great. And now he's my manager, and that is really awesome. Oh, let's see. Favorite place to take a vacation. I've always wanted to go to New Zealand. I almost entered a competition to, like, they were looking for tech workers in Wellington, New Zealand. I almost entered a competition to like go interview there and stuff, but I didn't. I chickened out. But let's see, one of my favorite vacations that we've ever taken as a family was to Glacier National Park. That was pretty amazing. Beautiful place. All right, how about Tanner? I'll pass it to you.
Sure. My name is Tanner. I use he, him pronouns. I'm in San Diego, California. My job title is I'm a product discovery developer for 1Password. So I kind of build like prototypes for what we want to build next. And let's see, my favorite place to vacation is, I like national parks a lot. I like to be able to turn off my phone and kind of get away from the computer when I can. So that's probably it, like Olympic National Park or Joshua Tree or Yosemite, something on the West Coast. And then I guess that leaves one more. Scott, take it away.
All righty. Joshua Tree is super cool, by the way. I just love the desert down there. It's super neat. You know, great to get to. There's a ton of stuff just due east of you. Palm Springs is also super bad, but it's less of a national park and more of like a theme park. Anyway, so my deal is my name is Scott, and my last name is pronounced Rue, in case anyone was curious about that. And let's see here. I need to look at my own list of things. So I am, my pronouns are he, him. I am located in San Francisco, California. My job title is Site Reliability Engineer, and I work at Cisco Meraki. Meraki was a company that was acquired by Cisco back in 2012. We make networking hardware and also like a single pane of glass that you can use to manage all of your networking hardware, so switches and routers, wireless access points, stuff like that. And as a site reliability engineer, I'm on the back end making sure that like the entire thing doesn't fall over in production and writing software to keep it up. So work a lot with back-end folks and front-end folks and just kind of try and keep the ship together. And my favorite place to vacation, I always say the Lake District in England here because I do love it there, but I'm actually going to change my answer this time around for those of you who've already heard that one. Because I spend a lot of time in Napa now that I live out here in San Francisco, and I absolutely adore it. My fiance and I are actually heading up there in about 2 hours. We're just going to set off in the car because we're doing the WSET level 2 like certification in wine, which is a lot like the Master Sommelier thing, except it's the like second level of that. So it's kind of mid-grade in terms of intensity, and it's more about like wine theory than it is about service. And so neither of us is in the industry. We just really like wine. Anyway, that's way too much information about me. Jennifer, would you be comfortable going first for just Collab, introducing yourselves, and I'll give you a list of things to talk about. It's gonna instead of being name, pronouns, location, job title, and favorite place to take a vacation, I'm gonna switch it around to name, pronouns, location. I'm gonna say, like, I'm not going to make you talk about why you joined the Collab Lab, but I do want to hear, like, maybe your desired next role would be a great thing to add here. And instead of favorite place to take a vacation, I want your favorite movie. If you've got a list of 10, just give me like something from the top 3. I don't know.
Yeah, sure. You guys, I'm so grateful that you guys are doing this. I really, really am. And I'm so grateful that other folks who are going to be working with me are all here. So thank you so much. My name is Jennifer Tubes. My pronouns are she, her, hers. I am, as I stated earlier, located in Knoxville, Tennessee. And my desired next role is I'm on the fence because I'm in a full stack boot camp and I still haven't discovered a love of back end yet. So right now I'm feeling more front end, but we'll see. We'll see how that changes or if it changes. And my favorite movies, I have, like you said, a list of 10 or 20. I'm not a spring chicken. I've been around. I like tons and tons of different movies. But one that keeps coming back to me is Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. I just really like that one. So I'm just going to stick with that. And that's
good to see Jim Carrey being serious.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. Maybe even more so himself than any other role that he was in prior to that. So, yeah.
Thank you very much. Arvin, would you like to go next? Are you comfortable with that?
Sure. Hey guys, I'm Arvin Fernandez. I live in New York City. Pronouns he, him, his. I'm looking for, okay, so I'm a full stack web developer. I went to a bootcamp, Flatiron, but I don't know. I like to say I'm looking for a back end role maybe, just because I'm better at it. I suck at the front end, but I do like enjoy looking at other people doing and I appreciate the work that goes into it, and I just suck at it. Favorite movie, Pursuit of Happiness, by where Will Smith is in.
That's a good one. Thank you very much for sharing, and hopefully by the time we get through this course, you will no longer be like broadcasting negative vibes. I know I sound like a true Californian, but like I'm sure you're very good at what you do, and you should say so. All righty. So I'm sorry. Is it Ikram?
Yeah.
All right, Ikram. Would you be comfortable going next?
Hello, everyone. My name is Ikram. I live in Canada, central Canada, Saskatchewan. What kind of? I'm looking for mostly maybe front end, but I've been into like I've been doing this project where like you try to make NFTs. So I don't know, I'm trying to like, yeah, just get into the NFT space because like you can also be a front end Web3 developer. Or favorite movie, I don't know, but I like Senna. It's a documentary, and yeah, it's one I keep coming back and watching all the time.
Senna, like the race car driver?
Yeah, race
right
driver.
on.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it was a legend for sure. It's a great documentary. Right on. And then finally, is it Manon?
Yes, it's Manan.
Okay.
Hi, everybody. I'm Manan. I forgot to change my name on here. I see it says MS. I meant to do so, but I completely forgot. I got shocked when I came on. I was like, oh man, I forgot. my pronouns are my pronouns are she, her, and in terms of a role, I would be looking for front end or like a UI engineer role because I'm really into interactive, immersive experiences and, like just building, like, I just love the front end in general. I could do the back end. I did graduate as a full stack developer from Flatiron as well, but I don't know, the back end is just not really my thing. Favorite movie, hands down, is Lord of the Rings trilogy. I love it. I am a geek on it. Like, you can ask me almost anything. I read the book, but I forgot a lot of the book because they had extra characters that weren't in the movie. But yeah, that's what it is for me.
Right on. Yeah, no, you're gonna find a lot of fellow fans in this crowd, I think. All righty. Well, thanks everyone for introducing yourselves. I really appreciate it. It's so great to meet all of you, and I'm really excited to work with you in the coming 8 weeks on building some apps together and building some skills together. It's going to be a really fun journey. And after that, the Career Lab is also super fun, and I have the impression that everyone here is going to do awesome there as well, because you're all really good at just presenting yourselves and putting a good foot forward already. So even so, I think it's going to be great to do both of those things. And I guess now at this point, we usually don't have that much going on in terms of like the first chunk of the meeting, but the next bit, and also ordinarily we have a third mentor. You've all seen April in the Slack. She's not here at the moment, but so ordinarily there's a little bit more diversity in terms of the people you see talking. Unfortunately, today you're going to get a good chunk of me. So I'm hopeful that you can forgive me for that later. I'm going to do a presentation for some of these meetings. We will do, actually, I should probably give you a rundown on how this usually works in case that hasn't been made clear already. So the way I like to hold these things is we'll effectively do at the top of the meeting. This time it's intros, most times it'll be demos. That'll be where we talk about what you did over the course of the preceding week. Then there's either a learning module or a retrospective, and the retro is a structured thing. We'll talk through that when the time comes, but we won't have one of those for a couple of weeks here. And then finally, we'll do issues in which we assign you some new work for the week. When I say you assign, people will be able to pick theirs. We're going to pair you off into teams of 2 that change every week. So you'll get a chance at that point to see who you're paired up with and pick some work to work on. So that's kind of the basic idea for how this is going to work. And today we're going to do a learning module on everyone's best friend, Git. I know that many of you will have already had experience with Git, especially if you've been through Flatiron School. I'm assuming you've done some work with source control stuff, but Git's a really fun learning module for me, and it will also, I think, give us the opportunity to get onto the same page about this stuff, just so we all have a really basic understanding of the tools. So yeah, you will also have a lot of good experience with Git, and I think maybe even some bad experience with Git here. We'll have some merges, we'll have some merge conflicts. It's going to be a great time for all. But that's a really key skill, and it's a useful one that you may or may not get asked about during interviews. But either way, you're going to find it incredibly helpful on the job when you have to like do collaborative work with Git. So, anywho. Let's get started on that. I'm going to share my screen. I'll just do one here, and you all don't need to see my calendar. Sorry about that. Let's get into the presentation. Okay, so we're doing kind of a condensed talk about Git. It's basically, sort of just the main key features of it. I'm going to do a little bit of demoing in case, there's some stuff that folks haven't seen before, and, I'd be happy to sort of explain a little bit about how what I'm doing is working. So, but for the most part, what we're going to talk about today is just like how you set up a new branch and change branches, how you stage your changes, how you save those changes into the commit log, how you send them up to GitHub, how you get the most recent ones, and how you get those changes merged into the main branch. So I'm going to say some things that many of you probably already know, like the back of your respective hands, or things that you have maybe seen before. But at the same time, I do want to go over them from kind of a first principles sort of perspective, just so that like I said, everyone's on the same page conceptually. And in case people haven't covered this, I do want to just kind of, you know, there's no reason to be embarrassed about not knowing something about Git. It's, I would say, a deceptively complex tool. But let's kind of start with just a glossary of terms being used for Git here. Repository, this is kind of the main thing we're going to be talking about, is where all of the code is stored. Not even necessarily code, it's a collection of files that are under source control. This means that changes to those files are tracked. And so for most of our time here at the Collab Lab, we're going to be working with just one repo, the TCL 33 repo you all should have seen already. Okay, so a remote is going to be an origin for that repository that is somewhere not local. So in our case, we're going to be using like GitHub is going to be the remote for this. So that's, you know, https github.com/tcl33, and that'll be, you know, sort of the non-local destination that's authoritative for the code in general. That's where like all the branches are considering as their kind of upstream destination, right? So then you have branches. So ordinarily you'll have what GitHub and GitLab like to call a default branch. This is by convention named main. And so this also allows you to sort of split off at various points and sort of like take a copy of the repository and make changes to it. And so I'll illustrate this because I feel like it makes more sense visually, but the basic way to think about this is to imagine that you have sort of like the main branch, which is sort of the authoritative source for what the current version of the code is. And you can, from wherever the present point of the main branch is, split off and create a new branch, which you make changes to, and then eventually those changes can get merged back into the code on the main branch. Again, visuals help with this. I will go through those in a moment. But the idea is, in our model for Git, a branch is a place where you make changes to the code without impacting the authoritative kind of saved version. And then eventually those changes are accepted or merged back into main. And there are commits. So your changes, when you make them, will get sort of saved to a branch as a commit. And so a commit is basically just a stack of changes to those files that are under source control. This is, you know, and these are also hashed, so you will be able to identify them by a unique-ish string of letters and numbers. It's usually a SHA hash. And usually these also contain a helpful message. Head is a keyword that refers specifically to the most recent commit on a particular branch. And then there is the concept of a pull request, or PR, which is a term specific to GitHub. A PR is a document that contains, it has usually a short title and a descriptive paragraph, or indeed a more descriptive kind of chunk of text and imagery that explains exactly what's going on in that commit, or stack of commits. So a PR is a process tool that you as a user will use to express to other users you're collaborating with why the code that you have included, why your commit stack should be made part of the authoritative main branch. In GitLab, they call this a merge request, but it's exactly the same thing. And I feel like it makes a little bit more sense, but pull request is a historical term. And indeed, this is basically just a request for code review and concurrently a request to merge into main. So we'll talk more about code reviews in a subsequent learning module. We have an entire one dedicated to how to conduct a good code review, what constitutes a good one, and I really love that module. But for today, the idea is that basically, again, a PR is a thing that you're allowed to instigate yourself, and it contains rationale for why your branch should be merged into main. Let's talk a little bit about merging, because I feel like that's something that I've kind of been dancing around a little bit here. So I need to sort of remind myself exactly what's going on here. So on the bottom, we have the kind of final view of what this is going to look like when we get done. So I'd like you to ignore it for a moment and let's look at sort of these top two items. Each of these circles is going to be a commit. And so in yellow, we have our main branch. The main branch in this repo, it just has a couple of commits. It's got an initial commit, which is usually in a lot of Git repos, it just contains like the README, or it's totally empty, maybe a license file. And sometimes it's got a bunch of initial work that you've just decided to commit in. Maybe you've been working outside Git and you're just pushing those changes up. And so we can imagine this particular branch, the yellow main branch, is for a front-end project. It's got a website. Maybe there's some CSS or something in there. I'm not a front-end dev, and eventually you're going to hear me say something and be like, did Scott actually mean to say anything about the front end? And you will discover that no, I'm just really dumb about JavaScript and CSS and the way that users interact with things. But anyway, so we can imagine that the initial commit has some stuff in it that produces a very basic skeleton of this front end design. And then there's a second commit here, which the description, the short description is just add button. It adds a button to it. And this is really good practice for Git, is to make sure that your commits contain, I would say, like kind of a discrete function. They should do something really specific. And once you achieve a certain level of functionality, it's a really good idea to make that a commit. Usually in the course of my writing code, and this is a bit of a digression, what I will be doing is I'll kind of I'll be working on a bunch of different files. And once I get the entire like project and a number of things up to a state where it's like working partway or working sort of, and I kind of want to save my progress because I've got it like basically up to speed, I'll usually make that into a commit. And then like by the time I get it all done, there's like one more commit to sew it up. But so it might be a string of these things. It's possible to kind of merge them all together in a process called squashing later, but that's a little bit more advanced than we need to get into right now. So again, imagine we've got our skeleton in one commit, and then we have another to add a button. That's the current state of the main branch, is the skeleton with a button of some kind. So you, as someone else working on this code, a second developer, might check out a new branch from this point. So your branch, which will be in this teal color, is going to contain an exact copy of that main branch up to the point of the add button commit. It's the skeleton and the button, and that's kind of where you are when you check out a new branch. So say at this point that you decide to do a bunch of work that you would eventually like merged into main. Now, maybe you're going to add some CSS styles, and once you get that completely finished, that ends up as a teal commit. Here you can see that's a separate circle. Maybe you want to add some tests for the CSS. I don't know if that's a thing you can test, but again, just sort of assume that I'm completely ignorant about these things. Maybe you're adding tests for the JS that exists in that initial skeleton commit. And then eventually, it's at the same time as you're working on that, whatever developer was working on the main branch, maybe they decide to also do some work concurrently. And so it's possible for two people to work in parallel on the same code base, and for that change to all be tracked and kept as commits. But and this is why branching is really powerful, is because more than one person can work on the same code at the same time. So once you get done with adding your tests, you submit a PR, a pull request again, where you ask for your branch with add styles and add tests to be merged into main. At which point a new commit, a merge commit, is created, and that is what reconciles these two branches. Now, if for some reason there's a conflict between the work done on this update text commit and any of the stuff you did on add styles and add tests, that's known as a merge conflict, and resolution has to occur before you can merge that first branch into the second one. So if any of your work touched the same lines of code, or maybe files got deleted or added that were, maybe not added, if a file that you were using got deleted, maybe that's a change you would need to reconcile. It's part of the merge process, and merge conflict resolution is something we'll talk about a little bit more. The main thing is, to remain calm, and much of it is kind of figure outable on your own, but involving the mentors is exactly why we're here. We know how to resolve merge conflicts, and even if we don't, we can usually help you figure it out. We can all learn something in the process. So the bottom, you can see here, this bottom line, the main branch, includes sort of the full story, and this is what it looks like after the merge. So you've got all of these happen kind of chronologically because the work you were doing on adding styles and adding tests comes onto the main branch after update text. You can see that eventually the kind of final reconciled Git log order includes those after the update text commit. So that's exactly kind of, exactly sort of how this works. Anyway, so let's now take a look at some Git commands, how you manage these things on the CLI. It's possible to do some Git work using visual clients and GUIs and stuff, and there's certainly nothing wrong with that. However, I'm not going to be focusing on that today, and also I think it's usually a good exercise if you have only worked with the GUI to try some of the CLI commands out in the course of the Collab Lab, if for no other reason than because you're in no danger of having anything like seriously career-threatening happen to you here, and it's a good learning experience. And usually, I found the CLI to be a reasonably efficient way to do things, and I think in many ways it's more efficient than a lot of GUIs I've worked with. And again, I'm not up to speed on the latest GUI tech, so I could be wrong about that. Anyway, so let's talk a little bit about branching. Now, the main command for branch management is git checkout. Git checkout -b will split off a branch from the current point of whatever branch you're on. So git branch is the thing that does this. Git checkout -b. Git branch is a different command. I'll talk about in a second. But so that's what takes us from the commit at whatever point you are to a brand new branch with a name that you get to specify. And git checkout switches to an existing branch that you already have on your local machine. So there's a different process for grabbing a branch that exists on the remote but not on your machine. The main two that I think is important for you to know right now is to check out a new branch is git checkout -b with the name that you want to use, and to change to a branch you've already got locally, it's git checkout and then the name of the branch you want to go to. And again, as the second bullet point points out here, you're now on a new branch, and the remote project at this point won't be affected by anything you do. This is all local stuff. Nothing will actually get changed unless you run a Git Push, which is something we'll talk about later. But that's the basic of Git checkout. And actually, I want to do a small demo here. Wow, what's the point of running the clear command if it shows up anyway? So let me go to my checkout, and let's go to let me go to Terraform. That's a good one. This is the code's not important, but I want to look at some LD is not the command I want to. Why is it that I always lose my ability to type whenever I'm on a Zoom? It's impossible. So a good command to know to just like check out and have some like readout of where you are locally is a list of all your local branches will show up with git branch. So that's a good one to know. If I wanted to check out a new branch, you can see that I'm on the main branch right now, and it's the only one I have locally. Even though there might be more upstream, the only ones on my machine are main, and that's it. And if I wanted to check out a new one, you can see, and this is one of the things about C Shell I really like is I just have a thing in here that shows me what Git branch I'm on if I'm in a Git repo. And so that's reflected there. But you can also see in the output of Git branch. By the way, can anyone not see what I'm doing here? Is it too small? I can blow it up.
All visible. I'm on a big monitor and it's fine for me, but I don't know if others are on smaller monitors. Might be worth pumping it up a couple steps.
Just gonna do that. Okay, cool. So now you can see from the output of Git branch that I have a couple of local branches, main and new feature, right? And I can go back to the main branch by doing git checkout main. Easy breezy. So that's the basics of git checkout and git branch. And by the way, if I decide that I just want to abandon my local new feature branch, maybe I spelled the name wrong, or maybe the commit's already been merged and I'm just kind of done with everything on that branch. The command to delete a branch is git branch -d, capital D. That one. So That's a really quick way to lose all your work, though, if you haven't pushed it up. So just be mindful of that. Okay, so next thing it's important to take a look at is the Git Add command. Now this is a way for you to stage the changes you have and sort of prepare them to be included in a commit. Git's model can be a little bit confusing if you're new to it, but the idea is basically that the add command tells Git what files you're interested in tracking changes to as part of a proposed change set. And Git Commit sort of wraps that up and makes it consumable as part of a merge request. It's the thing that's used to say that like all that tracked work, it's kind of part of a bundle that we want to be considered to be merged. Git Add is useful because it tells Git like which files in particular, and it allows you, if you want to break up maybe a bunch of different work that you've done into separate commits. If you have done work on button.js, for example, but maybe a few other things, but you just want this commit to be about the button, which can be a good idea if you want your commits to be kind of logically grouped. Then it might be a good idea to just have one commit for your button work. And that's a good idea, by the way, while we're on the subject. It's a good idea to kind of like group related work into a single commit, because in case you need to revert that commit later, it's a lot easier to untangle all of the related changes. In fact, many web UIs like in GitHub and GitLab will give you the option to revert a particular change as just a button, which will create a revert commit. But that entire process can be the simplicity of it is really easy to undo if everything is just in one big, here's all my work commit. So that's something to bear in mind. However, there are options if you really do just want to add everything. The capital A adds all files. And I will show you an example of this because, again, I know some of this is a little bit, maybe a touch abstract without a solid example of the thing I'm talking about. So I'm going to check out that new feature branch again. Sorry, I deleted it just for effect. But let's add a file here. I'm going to touch just an empty file, and it's going to be called boop. So now we can see I've got this empty file called boop. That's what the touch command does. If the file doesn't already exist, then it just makes a new one that doesn't have anything in it. So I've got boop in here. And if we take a look at git status, it's a really good command to know. You can see that this is an untracked file, which means Git doesn't really know about it. So you need to add the file in order for Git to have a concept that it needs to update the upstream source when you make changes to it. So I'm just going to add boop. Let's bring Git status again. And now we can see that this change is staged. So we can see in changes to be committed, there's a new file called boop. That's kind of one of the simplest things you can do. But let's say we need to make a change to a file that already exists. This is a README for something I developed in Terraform. It doesn't really matter. We're going to add a new line and say this is a new line. So one thing we can do, we can see in Git status, this is actually, it looks a little bit different. It's not showing us exactly the same thing. It's not an untracked file. This file, readme.markdown, already exists. So we can see this exists as changes not staged for commit. And staging it for commit is the process of Git adding it, right? So we could just Git add readme.md. And that would take all changes we've made to that file and include them as sort of part of any upcoming commit we're about to make. Or we could use git restore to discard those changes. Let's say maybe we don't actually want to do whatever we did. That's basically a big, it removes it and it brings it back to the point of before you made any changes. It's kind of the last commit on the branch. It resets it to head basically. And that's actually, that's more recent syntax for Git. If you see, maybe if you're running like a slightly older Git client, sometimes instead of git restore, that's git checkout -- is the old way to do it. But they recently, changed that to be a little bit clearer syntax-wise. Another really good command that I feel like it's important to talk about when we're in the add territory is just the -p flag, because this will show you in real time multiple changes you've made throughout the file, and it gives you different options for what to do with them. You can either stage that bit of code or not, or just like quit if you want to abort the entire process. You can enter A to stage the entire file, or you can do any number of things that make it a little bit easier to deal with. I'm going to quit out of that and show you a good example of when that becomes really handy. Going to be another line. So let's say I add some lines that are maybe designed to be part of another commit, or maybe I just have a bunch of stuff, a bunch of changes I make to this file. It's not just one thing, it's a lot of things. Let's say maybe I want this line, this is a new line, to be included in the commit. I might hit a Y for that. And for these lines, let's say maybe I don't think they belong in this commit. I just want to add the other ones. I don't really want to stick these in here. I can say N for that. And then if I look at Git status, I can see that I've still made those modifications for readme.markdown, but there's also some unstaged changes to it. It's possible to split it up like that if that's something you want to do. I find this to be tremendously helpful, even if I don't have a bunch of stuff in there, even if it's just one change, because it reminds me what I did. I'm a very scatterbrained person. I don't know if any of you are, the same way, but I like to do that as I'm running the ad, because I kind of get to a better place mentally about all the stuff I've done. Right. So next one, and the main one that is important to as kind of a really key Git command is commit. And so Git commit is a command that does a couple of things. It asks you to enter a message that describes what you've done, and then it creates a commit for that file. So this is doing a couple of things. It's number one, it's recording, and you have an option, by the way, to give it a short form commit, which is just a sort of a one-liner message, which is pretty common in development, especially using tools like GitHub. It's really easy to display the entire text of a commit in just a short truncated line. In some parts of industry, you'll find that they either require or highly encourage you to write a full, like, multi-paragraph explanation of commit. That's how it is where I work. But then again, I have to touch like production for my entire company's like server fleet a lot, so they do want paragraphs of explanation for why. It's not the thing you have to do everywhere. Anyway, it's my main point. So there's a few ways of doing this. You can either just say git commit, which will provide you with a Vim-based editor. Usually, or I might use your system editor. I'm not really sure, but it's, I think by default Vim. Anyway, it'll provide you a text editor, which will allow you to say what this thing is. Or if you can do it in line, this is usually probably the fastest way to do it. It's just git commit -m and then in quotes your short commit message. That's generally the way I've seen people do it in sort of GitHub-based orgs that don't have requirements on extreme commit documentation. So it's also possible to do git commit -am, and this is I believe that stages any tracked files. And it also takes an inline message. So it's the equivalent of doing git add -A plus git commit -m with the quoted string as an argument. I think that's exactly what it does, which is to say, if you have untracked files like my boot file I just created, that won't necessarily be added. But anything that was already tracked will be added into this commit, and it'll take as an argument for the description anything it quotes after it. So I'll show you an example of this, because I think that, again, might be more helpful than me just describing it. So we got all these changes, and let's talk about this first method first. Git commit will bring up this editor, which again on my computer's Vim. I think it uses your machine's default editor. And so the idea here is the top line is the short version. So like this will be add some notes to README and boot file. That's usually kind of the short version. And then down here on any subsequent lines, you can talk about a more detailed description. You probably won't be using this too much in the course of this, but you'd be very welcome to, and we'd be happy to read these detailed commit messages. Everything after these comment hashes will be ignored, so don't worry about that. But that's what this looks like. Now I'm gonna quit out of this because do that. And so I just kind of aborted that commit message. Ordinarily, what you would probably want to do for something like this would be, as you can see, just got these two files. So let's say git commit -m update readme and add boot file. Right. So let's have a look at the git log. Git log is another really good command. It can show you what's been committed. And it also has some indications of kind of where you are in that little merge graph. So on this one, you can see the authors are all me. Sorry about that. Except for repo visualizer. Never mind. So anyway, you can see each of these commits has a unique-ish hash that is identifying it to anything that needs to pick these items. It also has a listing of the branch you're on when you're looking at that commit. So this is a list of commits from the perspective of me on the new feature branch. So remember we talked about the keyword head that describes the most recent commit. So the head of the new feature branch is this update readme and add boot file commit. And then on the main branch, the most recent commit up at origin, which is a keyword that means our configured remote, and origin main, these have a merge from one of my most recent merge requests as the latest commit. So you can see that's where the main branch stops, and then my branch goes one commit beyond that with this update readme and add boot file thing. This is visualized a little bit better in the GUI, but it's important to kind of understand and be able to see in the log like what commits have we actually made recently. And actually, this is a good opportunity for us to use that third command, git commit -am add other lines. Now you'll remember we had some extra lines at the bottom of the README that I didn't add in. Git commit -am in this case will it'll commit those stage changes with this message, and then we can see a little bit more of an expanded example in git log. So you can see our head is now at the commit I just made, add other lines to README, but right behind that, on the same branch, is this update readme and add boot file commit. You'll notice that again, main is behind that. It doesn't have this commit yet because it's lower on the stack. But head of new feature has both of these stacked on top of each other. So that's the story for those things. I hope that in the chat, which I'm not looking at right now, people are answering questions and asking questions about some of the obscure nonsense I'm saying, because I have a tendency to do that sometimes. And I apologize for being a little bit verbose on some of these things, but I feel like Git is an area where we're all having a growth mindset quite deliberately. So the last couple of commands we're going to talk about are Git Pull and Git Push. So Git Push is the next step in the key workflow. So when you're doing work in a Git track repo, the ideal sort of workflow is you make changes, then you Git add those changes, then you Git commit in order to put those changes into a commit or a stack of commits, and then you Git push one or more commits from your current branch to the remote origin. Right. And so the ordinary thing, and so this is a really good command to, generally speaking, to run the first time you set up a new branch. Git push -u origin and then the name of your branch, which allows you not to have to specify the origin in the future on that branch. And then Git push, which will allow you to actually like push those changes to the remote branch. So again, reconciling the upstream with your local box. So this top one will do that once, but also will make it so that in the future you just say Git push. There's another way of doing this, and it's the way that I tend to do because I'm lazy and I forget to do Git push -u origin, whatever. You can just say Git push origin new feature or whatever the name of the branch is. And you don't actually have to make this the same name as your local branch, but I recommend it for the sake of simplicity. It can get really confusing if you don't. But so the idea is what you're saying with this command, Git push origin new feature, is that you're going to take your current local branch called new feature and tell the remote upstream, in my case GitHub, that it should receive, as long as it's, as long as you're authenticated to do this operation, it should set up a new branch if it doesn't already exist, or if it does, that branch called new feature. should receive these changes. So that's what that command's doing. And if you use the -u, then these origin new feature or whatever arguments are redundant, and you don't need to do them. You don't need to do them every other time after the first time. So I can actually demonstrate this because I feel like I'm doing a bad job of explaining it with the push -u origin new feature. Cool. And then if I touch new file beep, add it, and then git commit -m add beep file, and then git push. We already know what the origin is supposed to be because we configured it as with the -u before, so it knows that it should send that directly to the new feature branch, or from the new feature branch locally to the new feature branch upstream. Hopefully that was clear. I'm happy to answer questions later. We're getting to the end though. So this is the last one that's important to mention is Git Pull. And so the full workflow, again, we talked about kind of the simplified workflow is check out a new branch, make changes, add those changes, commit those changes, and then push those changes. Once you get those changes reviewed and merged into the main branch upstream, which is a workflow that takes place inside of GitHub, like on their website, at that point, they get merged into main. You throw a small party for yourself, as I do every time. I've got a hat here just for that, and it is attended exclusively by me and my neighbor Totoro. And at that point, you return to the main branch locally, and you're going to run Git Pull because you need to update main on the local branch. And it's a good idea, as I'm saying this now, I realize I probably should have led with this. Whenever you're going to start working on a new branch, it's usually a good idea to Git Pull main before you check out a new branch based on it. Because otherwise you're going to have to rebase it against the most recent part of main. So I would recommend that before you get started. And I think there's a Git config setting for this. I'll look this up and post it because I have this in my work repo. I just don't have it on my machine. There's one that can force a pull and rebase. But anyway, that's the story. And that's what it's saying in this bullet point. And I should have started with it anyway. Always a good idea to pull the latest main before you set up a brand new branch, because then you'll be up to date before you start making any changes, and you won't be working on files that maybe technically don't exist anymore. So there you go. Now we're going to talk for a little bit about the status of how this works in sort of the GitHub GUI land, because that's the last component. It's going to be pull requests and how to sort of make them, how to merge them. So you can see when you make when you push a commit or stack of commits to GitHub, it'll provide you with this happy little link to create a pull request for whatever branch you pushed up. So I'm just going to visit that in my browser real quick. And it brings you to this page on whatever you're working on, saying open a pull request. Ordinarily, you'll want to title this something descriptive. Add some files and modify the README, maybe. At which point you can also write a comment, which maybe might help people understand in more detail what you're doing. And then at that point, you will create a pull request, or you can create a draft pull request. This is also doable just by putting draft here, or I think whip also has the same effect, where until you remove that from the title, it's not mergeable. That might just be GitLab. I have to double check that. But anyway, create a pull request. And it's very safe to mess around with this, because even if you create one of these for yourself on our project, as long as you don't merge it in to main, nothing bad can possibly happen. So some automatic conflict checking will occur. If there is a conflict, this is where you'll have to do sort of merge resolution, or it'll usually direct you to do that in your terminal. And some important things to check out here. Number one, you can view the commit stack. We're going to talk a little bit more about this during the code review learning module, but you can see all of the commits. And if people have done some things in here with like longer descriptions, you can see what changes were made there. But usually the best place to look at the changes made to the code is in the Files Change tab. because this will show you kind of the final version in the stack that includes everything. You'll notice when we're looking at this that adding the boop file and updating the README just includes the line that I added in that first round. It doesn't include the other stuff that I did because that was in a later commit. So the fully reconciled version with that first change, with the second change, with both of these new empty files, that's in the files change tab. So that's the one I would recommend you take a look at first to see what was done. And then if the change was good, there will be usually an area here for someone else to approve in our project. In mine, I'm the only contributor, and I have, like, it's my Terraform Google GKE Helm Vault project is a dictatorship, so I just get to say merge if I want to. But in our process, as you will see, TCL 33, I should just be using this. Why was I using my own repo? There's something wrong with my brain. I'm terribly sorry. As you can see, if you were to make a PR here, I don't have a good example to show you, but there would be a requirement that your change has approval from someone else before it can get merged in. So that's sort of the basic rundown of how that functions. And let's return briefly to this presentation. You can also open a pull request, and that was the only other thing is like from the pull request tab here, the new pull request button. I think that was all the learning module wanted me to address, but I decided to go and make it more complicated. And so that's why I went and interfered with it. Anyway, last couple of items here. Merge conflicts. The first thing to remember is don't panic. It's going to be okay. Sometimes these are really tricky to read, and there's no one-size-fits-all solution to them. But definitely reach out if you run into one of these and you're having any trouble resolving it. Usually there's pretty good information in the commit itself. You'll see these sort of carets to the left to show you the current change and carets to the right to show you an incoming change. And there's a guide. I would encourage everyone, I'll post these slides in TCL 33 in Slack channel. You can take a look at this link, which talks about how to resolve merge conflicts. It's a pretty good post. I like it a lot. It's a good friendly story on the topic. There's also some really good resources here. Git's own documentation is all right, but Atlassian's Git tutorials are phenomenal. They're really good. They've got these excellent graphical sort of understandings of what's going on in some videos as well. It's really handy, and I like their stuff a lot. So I would recommend that you take a look at this. It's definitely a handy resource. So again, I'll post these slides so you can take a look at them in your own time. And also, you know, ask us, ask your mentors. We're here to help. Ask your team. They are also here to help. Everyone in the Slack is your friend. We're all here to help you. And that's really the story on Git itself. So thank you all for listening to my ramblings. I know that was a really long one, but I believe it's important for everyone to start off strong on Git materials. So I'm going to stop the share there. And if you want, we can do, I think we should do issues and then a Q&A if there are unanswered questions about Git. So Tanner, if you want to share and then go to the TCL 33 repo, and we can look at putting in, and we need to put folks into groups of 2 and assign each of those groups to one of the 2 issues 1 and 2. Sorry.
Yeah, sounds good.
I'm actually going to drop off, but great work on the learning module. Great to meet everybody. See y'all. Have a great first week. We'll see you on Slack.
Thanks, Andrew.
Thanks, Andrew.
Yep.
Andrew.
Okay. Everyone should be able to see my screen.
Yeah.
Right now, I am looking at the Collab Lab TCL 33 Smart Shopping List repo, which everyone should have access to. And specifically, I'm over here on the Issues tab. We see here we have 13 of them. Believe it or not, in actual work environments, they will not be numbered this conveniently, so take it for granted while you can. But it is a really nice way to kind of get a gist of what it looks like to build like a feature or an app from scratch. So when you do have the time to really get into the nitty gritty of these issues, you might find it interesting to go and read through them 1 to 13. And it really starts to tell a story of how something like this can come together. And I thought that was cool when I was reading them earlier. Again, it's very unique to get it in such an orderly fashion and such a well-worded and well-rounded issue. So take advantage of it while you can. But we are going to be starting with number 1 and number 2 down here, and we can take it from there. When you get the repo on your machine, and if you had any trouble doing that, we can totally help you out with that. But if you start it up, you'll see it's very bare bones. And in fact, I think I don't have it running anymore. Let's see, npm run start, I think it is. Let's just like look at this real quick together, because it doesn't get much simpler than this. In fact, this is it. This simple page is what we're going to turn into a shopping list, and that's pretty cool. We'll do it all together. We see some information here about it running on my machine. I'm sure some of us have seen this, not. So that's what we're starting with. And the very first issue is going to be creating a component that will reach out to our Firestore database. And you have some helpful information here. What I find cool as I was poking around the repo is a lot of the things that you would need to set up to use Firebase are already done for you here. And then in this specific issue, we actually have a link down here to someone who has implemented the solution for us, which is also something you will never see in an issue. So take that for granted as well. This one is a little trickier. Like if you don't have experience with Firebase, it would be a really good opportunity. Like, yes, this code is right in front of you, but it's an awesome opportunity to really kind of pick through each of the things that you see that you kind of have questions about, and to pull up the documentation for Firebase to really understand, what this is doing or what that's doing, and maybe not just copy paste, but really use it as an opportunity to kind of pick through and understand how everything is working, because that's how you're going to get the most out of this issue and really anything to work on. But so in this example, the issue is careful to guide us to not do too much here. It really wants us to just add a little component that can update our Firebase database for us, and then we're going to call it a day right there. In any issue you work on, it's really easy to go above and beyond with this and that. But oftentimes there's a lot of considerations to be done with how you want this to look or how you want this feature to work. And those things should be decided in the issue before you implement them, because it's a lot easier to talk about implementation details in English than it is to talk about them after you've written the code. So whenever you work on an issue, it's really good to try to just stay on target and try to implement what it is asking of you. And then in real work environments, this might also be a good opportunity to kind of leave your own feedback and say, well, maybe it should be this or that. But in this example, maybe not so much. So that's our first issue, getting our database all set up. And again, it's really simple. We're just going to be putting something in the database. Doesn't really even matter what it is at this point. So let's go ahead and take a look at our second issue here. And this is a bit more front-endy. The other one is definitely front-end also. But this one is playing around with React Router DOM. React Router is the favorite, quote unquote, way of handling routing in React. React is interesting because it doesn't really do a lot for you. It does, but it doesn't. A lot of things that you get in other frameworks like routing or page caching and things like that aren't handled for you with React. It's one of the reasons why people will refer to React as a library instead of a framework, because at the end of the day, you still have to go pick out all these things just to get React to do things that you would expect it to do on its own. And React Router is one example of that. So when you just want your page to switch from one page to another page, React Router is the go-to solution for that in the community. And in this example, if we read through it, we want a link to present and persist at the bottom of the app. So one of them to view a list and another to view add an item. So pretty simple there. You just want to be able to tab between two views. When the link is clicked, the browser URL updates and represents the current view and a matching view component. So in this case, don't think you have to go implement a full list, right? And again, sorry, my webcam doesn't focus well when the lighting's poor and the sun has gone down and now I'm just in a blurry hell and I can't get out of it. don't be concerned about like going and writing a full list or going and, you know, going above and beyond, because again, those are things that you'll have plenty of time to do in a different issue. So our goal for this one is just to get that routing set up so we can see a list, even if it's just a page that says list. And then the same for add an item, really focusing on getting that functionality down. And an added bonus of this, in addition to allowing us to concern ourselves with the implementation details of the list and the add item in the separate issues, is when you go and MR or PR this work, create a pull request, it will allow the reviewer to have a much more focused view as to what the issue was and what you were able to accomplish. And keeping the PRs as small as possible allows the reviewer to also not feel overwhelmed and to feel like they have a good understanding of what you have done here and be able to provide helpful feedback. If the MR or PR, excuse me, is 1,000 lines, it becomes a little bit more difficult. In this case, you know, a couple dozen lines maybe might do the trick, who knows? But that's one example here. And those are going to be our first two issues. And then as you see, we don't have to go into all of the details of the next one because we'll be here for the next couple hours discussing them. But you really get to see the app really build out. Here we want to set up a new shopping list. So all of a sudden we're adding that functionality of creating a new shopping list. And then the next issue, what do you do with a new shopping list? You add a new item to the list, right? And so it slowly builds out and builds out. And then by the end of it, we're doing some polishing and we're making it look good and feel good, which is awesome. And another thing before we like jump off and start working on it and get all of it excited is it's highly common when you accept an issue to get some designs along with it. So you kind of can build a picture in your brain as to what you should be building. And there's a video here on the main page that really shows you an example of what's already been built. And this allowed me to really put into my head like, oh, okay, when we're talking about the issue of lists and new items, that's what we have down here on the bottom. We have a button to show a list, and then later the user interacting with this app will click on the button to create an item and the view will change, right? And so as you pick up these issues, you can come back and kind of reference this video to see, kind of build your own mental picture of what you should be building. And again, referencing the issues text as well. But both good resources for figuring out what you want to build and how you're going to build it. So those are the issues. And this is my first time presenting. So if Scott or if anyone thinks I missed anything, let me know.
Lauren's been making some great notes in the chat here, and I feel like it's important to say a couple of them out loud. One of which is, you know, the acceptance criteria, the AC, that's got to be your sort of North Star for these. Like, if you make sure you concentrate on getting those done, and you know, there's going to be a lot of room in the last couple of sessions of this course, the last 4-week period, to really go nuts and build some design stuff into it. For now, we really want you to focus on getting the technical end done and making sure that you're like, extra credit is fine, but we really need you to do the AC and let that be your kind of guiding star. The only other thing I wanted to mention, and thanks again, Lauren, for mentioning this, I forgot where this was stored, but in the project brief.markdown in the repo, it contains a list of who's paired up with whom. And so this first week, it's going to be Arvin and Jennifer and Ikram and Manon, and those are going to be these pairings for this week. And as I also mentioned in the chat, when you're setting up your branch, when you're checking that out to work on, make sure that you name it something like initials of one person, initials of another person, and then like a short, maybe 1 or 2 words of the like feature you're working on in kebab case. So like you can see I've written down an example here in the chat, maybe like ms-jt-firebase. Actually, that would be wrong for this one. Maybe, sorry, it'd be like maybe io-ms-firebase or something like that. But we don't really care which pairing of the two of you works on which issue. Does anyone here have a really strong preference about which one you'd like to do?
So Arvin, it sounds like you are a back-end person. Do you actually want to work with me and set up Firebase?
Yeah, I mean, I have no experience with Firebase, but down
Neither
to
do
learning
I.
it.
It'll be a
It'll be
learning
fun. Let's
experience.
do it. Let's do it.
Yeah.
Cool.
Nice.
All right. So we will, we should do an assignment on that issue then.
Mhm. Yeah. Do I have access to do that?
That's a
I haven't
great
used.
question.
Oh,
Or are you
I'm
not
not signed in.
in?
I'm here. Yeah, hold on. Let me.
If you want, I can handle that right now.
Yeah, no, I am signed in on a different browser here. That should be just fine. Oh, look, I already have it up too. Cool. Let's see. I haven't used GitLab in so long. Let's see. Arvin. And who else do we have on there?
Jennifer.
Jennifer. Cool. Thank you.
Cool.
Cool.
All righty, and then in that case, sounds like Ikram and Manon, you're going to be doing the. Oh, Tanner, you assigned yourself. Oh no.
Yeah, sorry, I got this one. Let's see. How do you spell that again?
Not an R. It's a M-A-N-O-N.
M-A-N-O-N. Gotcha. Sorry.
There we go.
Cool.
Killer. Alrighty, and you're not entirely on your own. I will schedule 1 hour-ish long office hours for all interested Collabies this week, in which we can talk about, we'll do the merging on that day is basically the idea. And so if we run into merge conflicts, we can find them together is kind of the main thing. But so that's the idea, is office hours / code review will be handled at that point. And so I'll reach out in the Slack channel with just a doodle invite that'll explain a little bit more about that. But I look forward to talking to y'all then. And does anyone else have any questions about the Git presentation? I'm sorry, I know we sort of rushed to get to the issues because I wanted to make sure. I know we're over time and I want to be as respectful as possible of your time considering that. Going once?
Yeah, I don't have a question, but thank you so much. Yeah.
Awesome.
Nice.
Thank you all for being here. I really appreciate it. I think it's going to be a great time. I've just been reading through the chat while I've been sort of catching up and letting Tanner do the issues thing. And I think you are all awesome, and I'm very excited to work with you. So good luck. Have a great time. These issues I think should be they're not extremely challenging, but they'll provide you some interesting new opportunities to work with some stuff. If you run into trouble, reach out in the Slack. Feel free to get in touch with each other and with us. We're obviously here to help you, and that's exactly what I intend to do. Sorry again about this meeting. I will also reach out with a separate doodle, so you'll be getting two for like the regular meeting time. This one was a one-off because I'm going to be in Napa all weekend, and the second one that you'll see will be for the office hours this week. We will handle office hours ad hoc because the mentors switch them off, but yeah, that's the idea. All righty. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a great weekend and good luck with your issues.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Talk to you soon, everyone. Thank you.
Bye.
Cheers.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye. Night.